Bobby, thank you so much for doing this with me today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
It's good to be in Ashburn. You and Jack are taking such good care of this office.
Thank you very much. We love Ashburn, Loudoun County.
Here. Yeah. It's nostalgic for me anytime I drive through Ashburn because I did live here for a brief period of time. It's changed so much over the years.
I
In a
know.
good way.
I've lived in Loudoun County for over 30 years, and it's been awesome.
Yeah. It's evolved a lot. Well, I have a lot of questions for you today, Bobby, starting with how your career in real estate began. I'd love for you to kind of take us back to the beginning. My experience of knowing you is you doing mobile closings for us.
Right.
You know, what, 6 years ago at this point? This was pandemic times and closings were not always taking place in the office for obvious reasons. And you were doing mobile closings for us. And then we were like, we got to have you full time on board. And now all these years later, here you are. It's amazing.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah.
So I started right out of college in a management trainee program for a local bank.
Okay.
A couple years after starting, I became a branch manager, and our focus was on home equity lending. Got to understand the origination side.
Yep.
While being in the branches.
We share that.
And then went on to become the manager of the home equity lending department.
So cool.
So there I got to see the back end of it,
Yeah.
the underwriting, the title side of it. Actually worked with a group that handled foreclosures when it got to that point.
Wow.
And serious delinquency and so on. So really got to see from start to finish working for that local bank. Then we got acquired by a larger bank, and then my efforts shifted to the commercial lending side. So mainly general lending, but also some commercial real estate as well. So there I got to see another side of it.
A whole different ballgame, I bet. I've never
Right.
touched that side at least in the lending sphere. That's so cool. And then from there,
My wife and I refinanced our mortgage. It was during COVID.
Yeah.
So a mobile notary came out, and after we finished the closing, we both had the same thought. We both thought,
yeah.
this might be interesting
Yeah.
for you, Bobby. Being the dutiful husband that I am, I looked into it.
Filled with
and,
wonderful ideas.
and in all seriousness, having handled the process from beginning to end,
Yes.
there was nothing like the closing part. The closing part was always the best part of the transaction, right? Everybody's happy. You get to give the borrower or buyer exactly what they're looking for. So it just seemed perfect.
I love that. That's such a unique experience, and I'm sure it's come in really handy during your time at Ally. So specifically, how has your experience in lending and banking benefited you on the title and closing side of real estate?
Oh gosh, immensely. A lot of folks come in, attorneys alike, and they understand the law, but they don't have as good an understanding of the lending side of it. So that's something that they have to learn. And for me, I had that part of it. You know, I learned some other aspects of it, including title insurance, but I already had the lending part. So as a mobile notary, even, that was an advantage I had beyond other folks that were doing the service.
Absolutely. It's why you stood out. So in your opinion, why does the actual closing experience matter more than people might think?
Folks say that you remember your first and your last experiences with folks. And I would argue that the last is absolutely the most important, right? So that's what you leave with. And I think that the closing certainly is the last experience that folks have with the agents, with the lenders, with the title company. And so if you could make that an experience, a good experience, then they leave thinking everything was great. Some things might have been frustrating to them along the way, but if the closing goes well, it's beautiful.
I couldn't agree more. What do you think makes a buyer walk away saying that was easy versus them walking away completely stressed out?
Well, I think it's important to, when they walk into the office, to greet them, explaining that I'll be handling their closing to them, offering them something to drink, snacks, trying to disarm them. Folks come in typically with an expectation and helping them see that it's not what they thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
I think really just goes the distance with them.
I couldn't agree more. Something funny happened last week. I was in Old Town covering closings, and I made the grave mistake of not baking fresh cookies for one of the closings that I was about to do, because right before we had this big client event in the office, and there were so many great pastries and desserts. So I was like, oh, these are so good. These will be better than cookies. But one of our very loyal agents who closes with us all the time at all of our offices, like, not to be that person, but where are the cookies? And I was like, oh no, I was like, I messed up. I thought that with the pastries and the puffs, she's like, I come here for the cookies. I'm like, it's just amazing that that's become a part of like the Allied staple piece.
So what are some small things a great settlement agent does that change the whole vibe of a transaction?
Really showing your personality. I think all of us are people. I really think meeting them on their level. So greet them at the door, sitting down with them, helping them understand that this is about them. They're the focus.
Yeah.
And being empathetic. Some folks may come in with some challenges. There may have been some issues at the walkthrough, unexpected, but helping them understand that it's going to be okay.
And I think that's something we do really well here is, not just treating it like a transaction, this is your time to sign the papers, it's like you're saying, we're treating everyone as people and taking their unique situation into consideration, trying to make that special for them and whatever that means.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And every closing is going to be different in its
Every
own
single
way,
one.
right? So it's reading the room.
Yep.
Some folks come in and they're at the same level I am with making it fun and they buy right into it. Others come in a little bit more reserved and, it really takes spending some time with them. I think really establishing a relationship with them. It's going to be a short relationship, but it can still be a deep relationship in understanding where they're coming from, where they're going, what their goals are. Just making them understand that I'm on their team.
Absolutely. That's what it's all about. So what is the most valuable real estate information that you've learned as a settlement agent for Allied?
I think understanding title insurance better.
Yes.
I bought several homes and I understood title insurance to be something that I needed, but I can't say that I really understood what title insurance does. So becoming a licensed title producer helped me understand that. Just working here helped me understand that. And the importance of title insurance. It's really, I tell folks, it's something you should never leave home without.
I completely agree. No, it's honestly a great answer. And if you'd asked me that probably would have been what I said too. So we've talked about this a little bit, but you've been with Allied for several years now, being the closer in Ashburn. You are the face of what closings look like at Allied in Loudoun County. With how Allied approaches the closing experience, what value does that bring to a first-time home buyer?
Not all of our closings are folks buying in Loudoun County. Western Fairfax County, we have some Fauquier, but the fact of the matter is I live in the community. I've lived in the community for over 30 years. So I think that helps. My kids went to Loudoun County schools. So think that helps folks understand that, I'm right here with them. That's a value that I bring to them.
I completely agree.
And I'll also mention that one of the things that has been really exciting for me is seeing people multiple times. I know at least one client, I handled their purchase, their sale, and then their next purchase.
I love that.
I've run into folks in the bank, in the grocery store.
It speaks volumes when someone knows they want to return to the same title company. The title company is often the forgotten piece. That says a lot. It really, really does. So talk to me about one of your favorite closing experiences.
There was a gentleman that came in by himself. You could tell he was very different than me. So it was a challenge to be able to find those commonalities with him. And I mean, we laughed, we got through the documents, and at the end, I can honestly say I think he's the only man that's hugged me at the end of a call.
Are you serious?
Love it. I'll never forget it.
That says a lot about you, Bobby, because I think it takes a really unique person to be able to do this job well. You need to have a thick skin. You need to be kind of a chameleon and mold. And like you just said, find that common ground. And that can be challenging. But clearly he felt that the common ground was there. I love that you remember that. Okay, behind the scenes as a closer. So Bobby, what do you think surprises buyers the most on closing day?
Well, I think that time gone by used to have buyers and sellers in the same room.
Yes.
Now it's very separate, largely as a result of COVID. It's really what I've experienced most is having it be separate. There are a few occasions where buyers and sellers have asked to be together, but I think I'd say that's it. It's just the fact that they're walking in, and it's really. Typically, it's just three parties.
Yeah.
It's the buyer, it's the agent, and myself. And occasionally the loan officers come as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I often find myself telling buyers as their closing's getting started, your seller already signed, whether it was earlier that day or the day before, 2 days before. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's great. What is the most common thing buyers forget before they close?
I think the most common thing that gets left is reading glasses.
Luckily, we have some AT branded reading glasses coming on the way. That's a good one. No, I totally agree. What is the biggest misconception people have about closing day?
I think it is their expectation is to walk into a dimly lit, sterile environment with attorneys that sit them down and pass a document to them, take it back, and
very
just
formal.
Very formal. It's the passing
Sign
of documents, and then we're done. And that's not what settlements look like for us.
Right.
For us, it's really about the closing experience and making sure that when they leave, they remember that their closing was done with Allied Title and Escrow. And all that does is that makes the folks that recommended Allied, assuming someone did, make them look better.
Exactly.
The agents, the lenders. So it's a win-win for everybody.
Absolutely. I think so too. I think it's important to show a united front because that's the best way to get someone to the closing table when the agent, the lender, the title company are all on the same page, working together. And that's part of it for us too, to make it shine for everyone. So Bobby, what do the best agents and lenders do differently that makes your job easier?
I think that just preparing them for what to expect. Take a little while to get through all the documents. And
Yep.
so if they have that expectation walking in the door, I think that's really helpful. Also, it's helpful to, particularly in cases where there might be a lender and an agent there, trying to minimize the chit chat. And because it can become distracting.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, it's amazing to have the agents there because they have the experience, have the trust, the buyer's trust, and they can help substantiate what I've said to them. Yes.
Absolutely. I completely agree. Do buyers really need to read everything that they're signing?
Wow. So deeds of trust can be 15 to 22 pages. It's good to know what you're signing, and folks feel very differently about what they sign. Some folks want to be able to read everything. I think it's really important, if you're one of those people, make sure that your loan officer, your title company know that you're that type of person. And that way we have the ability to send documents to you in advance. You can read them. And so when you come here, you've been through them, you're comfortable, and it's a matter of signing. To read every word in a closing package could take hours. The fact of the matter is the loan documents are a result of things that have gone wrong for lenders over many, many years. They're very basic with the exception of the particulars about the transaction itself, and they're made so that lenders can sell loans, package them up and sell them on the secondary market. So there's no negotiability to the documents. They're what they are. So you have the ability, one thing that we do with all of our clients is we put the documents into Qualia so they can be downloaded, they can be printed. You can go home that night, you can read them all night long.
If you really
so they're
want
there.
to. They're a little boring,
Right.
but
think they're kind of fun myself.
They are. No, truly, they are. They are. But no, I agree. That's a great answer. With that said, why are there so many signatures?
It's a result of things that have gone wrong over the years.
Yeah.
So you'll sign documents that basically say you are who you say you are. That shows variations of your names that came up when the lender did the credit search. You'll sign a document that says if you don't pay as agreed, they may report negative information to the credit bureaus. I don't think that surprises anybody.
Yeah.
But at some point, someone challenged that, which required an additional document. So, as I said, the documents are there so that the lenders are protected. Don't get me wrong, there's some protection to the buyer-borrower as well. There are documents that say that the lender can't just call the loan without reason. There's no negative amortization. So it's both sides, but mainly it's making sure if things do go sideways, the lenders have the ability to protect themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that makes a lot of sense. How do remote online notarization closings actually work?
They are amazing. One of the good things that came out of COVID. Well, essentially, we upload the documents that they would otherwise be signing in the office to our secure platform. We use Proof. The buyers or the sellers, they upload their IDs. They get their identification validated. It's a great platform in ensuring that the right person is signing the documents. So once they've gotten through their validation, they join the meeting. I'm immediately notified to join the meeting as well. I've also received an advance text that they were starting the process. But we join together. The agent gets a link. They click on the link. They join as well. So we've got the sellers, buyers, and their agent. It's similar to a Zoom call. We can see each other. The documents are there as well. I have the ability to look at their IDs as a notary and to validate it's them also. So beyond that, it's just like any face-to-face closing. We walk through the documents and make sure all of their questions are answered. Same thing. I treat a remote online closing just like I do a face-to-face closing.
Yeah.
In that I'm still trying to establish a relationship with them.
Yeah.
Making sure, I think one of the biggest challenges with that is getting them to see my excitement for it.
Yeah,
right?
Of course.
It's one thing when you're in a room together, but I try my best to remind myself to smile at the very beginning. That is the disarming part, right? And I can't even tell you how many times proof closings have just made my day.
Oh, really?
Because very often folks come in and I think one of the things I enjoy the most is just the different personalities, right? And so some folks can just, they'll laugh through it and tell jokes and had some odd ones too.
Sure.
But generally it's great. And there have been moments where I've finished up and thought, oh, I love what I'm doing.
Oh, I love that so much. Could I be in Paris? And if I was a buyer or seller?
Oh gosh, you could be anywhere.
I could be anywhere in the world?
You could be anywhere. I've closed for folks all over the world.
Awesome.
The challenge is the timing, right?
Sure, yeah.
The time. Sometimes it's the middle of the night for them, but you could be just about anywhere in the world.
That's the best. And that's how it should be. Because at Allied, we close anywhere, anytime. Literally.
That is right. I've heard that before.
Somewhere here. So who do you think that these remote online closings are the best for? Who's the best candidate for that?
Definitely for sellers and cash buyers that either are unable to come into the office or just choose not to. At this point, we do the majority of our sellers that way. They just love the convenience of being able to sign in their living room.
Leave their house.
They can be in their pajamas, right?
Yeah, having their morning coffee. Cool. Sign.
Exactly.
We're done. Sold our house.
Exactly. But definitely sellers and cash buyers.
Yeah.
The lender documents, many of them just have to be signed face to face. So we rarely do buyers that are financing through our remote online platform.
Makes sense. Bobby, what is title insurance? And do I actually need it?
As a title company, what we do is we check the records, the land records, to make sure that when title passes from the seller to the buyer that they get clean title. That's looking for judgments, deeds of trust. We make sure that that the clean title passes them to them.
Yep.
The challenge is we can only know what we know. So that's where title insurance comes into play. Title insurance protects the buyer against things that could have happened at any point in the history that become a problem to whoever owns the property at that current moment.
Yeah.
So you insure your property against hazards like tornadoes or those types of things. It's not expensive. It's a one-time fee, and it is well worth it. I can tell you that as a homeowner, while I didn't understand it, I always bought it. Now that I understand it, I feel even better about buying it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I always hesitate when someone is trying to opt out of it because, the owner's insurance, as you know, is optional for them. But I always try to explain to them, I know this is your option. I'm not here to pressure you, but I just want you to understand what you're opting out of and the kind of protection that you'd be missing if these things were to happen.
Just to add on to that, so general types of title insurance. There's lenders and owners. It basically says who it protects, right? So lenders' title insurance is required. It's always required if there's a lender. And there's a reason for that, because they want to be protected. They want their loan to you to be protected. So there's a reason why they do that. So
that's another thing I'll tell people is you're already required to protect someone else's interest in your property. Why would you not pay to protect your own as the actual owner of the property? That's usually my one last, and if they're still, I'm like, okay, all right, their decision, but have to are you sure? This is meant to protect you.
And
Please.
the good news is that it's really rare. Folks often do their homework. They speak to their lenders, they speak to their agents and the folks that understand it best, so that when they've gotten to the closing table, they have at least a general and a good enough understanding to know that it's important that they should purchase
Absolutely. I agree. If I'm the buyer and I close on a house and the seller hasn't signed yet, who has control of the property?
The seller still does. Until money's exchanged and everyone has signed all their documents, satisfied all their requirements, the transaction hasn't been consummated.
That's right. We were talking earlier about how oftentimes we'll see the seller sign in advance of the buyer, whether it's a day or two, a week before the settlement date. 2 cases where the seller and the buyer were signing on the same day, but the buyer was signing first with the seller signing after. And again, I don't see that very often.
Same here.
So in both those cases, it was now remember what we talked about. You do not own the house until the seller has also signed. So I know you're getting the keys and that's great, but we cannot be unlocking any doors. And I'll tell them, I will personally text you when the seller's all done. And at that moment, you own the house.
Right.
So it's interesting when that happens, but I'll try to make a joke here are keys that don't technically belong to you yet. Wait for my message. I know. So what are the documents that you go over with buyers during a closing?
So there are 2 sets of documents. There are the title company documents that we prepare, and then there are the lender documents. So the title company documents, there might be 6 or 7 of them or so. And those documents relate just to that, to the title, the transfer of the title.
Yep.
Typically there's the same name affidavit, there's something that speaks to your election on title insurance. There's a settlement statement, perhaps one of the most important ones. In the settlement statement shows the transfer of funds from between the buyer and the seller. It shows all of their expenses associated with settlement. So that's a great document, and I usually start with that one. Then you get into the lender documents, and there's a closing disclosure. The closing disclosure has a lot of the same information as the settlement statement, but it also describes the loan. So that's the biggest piece of it is the loan. So I tend to walk through the closing disclosure just like I do the settlement statement. Again, to the extent that the buyer wants me to.
Yeah.
If they say, we know this, we
Yeah,
get
yeah.
it, okay, then sign.
Yeah.
So sign right here. But most folks like to hear my spin on the whole thing.
Absolutely.
So I'll walk through the type of loan that they're obtaining, their loan amount, their interest rate, and so on, and walk through the document. The note is the promise to pay. So to the lender, that's probably the most important document. So I'll point out certain things there. It shows the grace period and the interest rate and a lot of things that the closing disclosure has as well. The deed of trust, this is certainly up there with the note as far as lenders are concerned, because that's the document that gets recorded that evidences the lender's interest in the property. So I'll show them the basic parts of the deed of trust, which is in the first 2 pages for the most part. It shows the two of them, or however many there are, as the owners and grantors of the deed of trust, who the trustee or trustees are. It speaks to any riders or attachments there are to the deed of trust. I'll explain what they are and that they'll sign those next. And then I'll explain to them that it's a fairly standard Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac document. So for the most part, they're all the same.
Do I get to choose my title company, or does my real estate agent choose the title company?
You absolutely do. So typically, the buyer is the one that chooses the title company.
At least in the DC, Maryland, and Virginia area. If you're watching from Colorado or Texas, we know it's different.
And real estate agents have experience with different title companies. So they typically will recommend a title company. And most often, that's the way the title company is selected, because the buyers don't typically have a lot of experience in that regard.
What's the title company?
Right.
Yeah.
They think they're all the same. They're not.
They're not.
But they think they're all the same.
Of course.
So very often the real estate agent has a lot of weight in who that title company is going to be. Again, it's the buyer. The seller deals with whoever, for the most part, the buyer chooses. However, the seller has the ability to be represented by an attorney.
Yeah, that's right.
So,
or they can negotiate. They can be, they can come back to the buyer and say, hey, I really wanted to go with this one. It can all be negotiated too, but no, I agree. Most of the time it's the buyer's choice. It is the buyer's choice, and they lean heavily on their agent, as they should, for those recommendations. Well, who do you work with? Who are your best title partners? And why, Okay, I love this question. Everyone pay attention. This is probably the most important one we're gonna go over today. Bobby, what are the best ways for me to avoid wire fraud? How can I protect myself?
So I'll start by saying, generically speaking, never accept wire instructions that come to you by phone, by text, by email. Never. Specifically, from our perspective, when we first receive a contract and we set it up in our system in Qualia, immediately the wire instructions go out to our buyers and sellers. So we tell them that these are going to be those instructions. They will not change. And they have to acknowledge that they've received this.
Yeah.
So as long as they stick to that, they're going to be good.
Yeah, I think it's being diligent, making sure the instructions are coming to them in a secure way. Like you just mentioned, we send them securely to them through Qualia.
We're constantly looking for ways to tighten up that process,
Yeah.
even though it's amazing as it is. So we're starting to do a validation of the client up front. We'll send to them all the instructions. So they now have the ability to receive the entire account number. We do, however, recommend to them that they still verify it. We're comfortable that they've gotten it from us through the secure portal, but at the same time, there's nothing wrong with reaching out directly to us here at Allied and confirming that.
Well, Bobby, this was great. Thank you so much for doing this with me.
Is that it?
That was it.